time, beyond time and space, on pleasure, forever. I look for your face, beyond time and space, forever. We're lost in pleasure.
I built my first saddle when I was like 13, 14 years old. I asked my father for a saddle, and he thought that was the stupidest question he ever had. He said, any idiot can make a saddle, go and make your own. So I said, well, I never built.
Is that what he told you?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Dad.
I said, well, I've never made a saddle. Well, he says, well, give it a shot, why don't you? So I got all this.
And you did.
So I got all this old saddle maker, Bernie Lawrence, he was in the area, and he had a little saddle making thing there. And so I said to Bernie, and I'm still stuttering very badly. And I said, and Bernie felt a bit sorry for me, I think. And I said, can you show me how to make a saddle? I said, I want to make my own saddle. And he says, yeah, we'll make a saddle. I'll show you how to do it. So he found an old tree and a stack of crashed up trees he had.
So we're talking about like from scratch.
From scratch, yeah, from scratch.
What would become an Australian style saddle?
But he made them. He made them for his saddles were very coveted by what he called ringers, and you'd call them cowboys. We call them ringers and drovers. Okay. And they work cattle, and they're the toughest lot of people you ever met in your life.
Oh, I bet.
And so they'd come to Bernie Lawrence and get his saddles and buy saddles and stuff like that. So I finally built my saddle. It takes me a year, and that's when I just got hold of Queenie then, and my dad had kicked me out of the house, which I thought was a very smart idea, because there was a lot of trouble. I was in fights and everything, and and not going to school, and the cops were looking for me, and it wasn't. I felt a bit, and he was a dignitary of the town. He was a man of substance, so it was a bit embarrassing to have me around the place. So
troublemaker.
Yeah, I'm a troublemaker.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I get this story. I get this saddle together, and put it on Queenie. Take it out to the sale yard. I'm riding this saddle around on Queenie in the sale yard. I'm thinking, wow, this whole sale yard, a disused place now. And I go, wow, this is fantastic. And I hear somebody calling out, hey, you. I look over, there's an old guy leaning on the rail. And he says, where'd you get that saddle? And I says, well, as a matter of fact, I built it. He said, bullshit, you didn't build that saddle. I said, well, Bernie Lawrence helped me. Oh, that's why it looks like it's a Bernie Lawrence saddle. So, and he started peeling off all this money. He gave me what would be equivalent of $1,000 for this saddle.
Well, people just discover you because, like, in episode 1, you were talking about how this guy just shows up with the typewriter.
Yeah.
And now this guy just, shows up and is like, all right, well, you can make these. I want to buy one. Do they look like this? Is that the original
look like
one?
This. That's one of my designs, and that's a reproduction now. But the original.
So this is an Australian stock saddle.
Australian stock saddle.
And your company is Australian Stock
Australian
Saddle.
Stock Saddle Company.
Yeah.
And I trade under my own name, Colin Dangaard Inc. And so I've been very successful with that. But out in the bush, I got onto selling these horses and running them to ground, and it was just great. But the biggest thing I learned to do was speak, and I'd practice speaking to my horses.
And you had not known at the time that you were going to end up making a career with the saddles until after.
Oh, that's way later.
Yeah,
way later.
But what I love is that you brought it back. Like you had already made one and done that, and you're
but that's way later. I had it as an idea for a saddle and as a career. But after I was at, then I built that saddle, and then I started making good money selling horses to impoverished tobacco farmers. But then I started writing stories because that old guy gave me a typewriter.
Right.
He thought I was pretty amusing, so I started writing these stories, short stories, and I just copied Jack London. I'd get Jack London books and copy them. How would Jack London write this? Oh, he'd do this, he'd do that. Yeah, and instead of the Yukon, it would be
It's
the
smart. It's
the
smart.
Outback.
Everybody has inspirations, right?
Yeah,
Like,
so he inspired me greatly, and so then I started sending him off to men's magazines, blood and gut stories I call them, high adventure, guys rationing crocodiles and all the stuff in the bush, and I'm living half of that life myself. There's crocodiles right there where I'm sleeping. There's crocs there.
So this is the original crocodile hunter right here. This is the original one.
But more important than that is the world's deadliest snakes. We get a snake called the taipan. If it bites you, you got 3 minutes to live. And
Damn, and you've seen one, obviously.
oh, they're all over the place. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. And they're heat-seeking too. So if you're laying down at night and you fire, they'll come and want to sleep down.
I have such a weird fear of snakes.
No, so do I. I don't like
I also have
them
a weird fear of cats biting me.
Yeah.
I do. I have nightmares about cats like biting me. It's the strangest thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know I've been to Australia a few times, but I've never seen anything that can kill you in 3 minutes if it bites you like that.
Oh yeah. It was.
But it's no big deal for you.
Like
right?
Robert Mitchum said, when he came back from Australia after making the Sundowners, somebody asked him, "What do you think of Australia?" He says, "Yeah, strange people, a beautiful country, full of animals, and if the animals bite you, you're dead."
I would say beautiful people, a strange country, actually. Right? Some of the most beautiful people in the world, I think, are from Australia. I really do. And so fun-loving people, all that kind of stuff.
They're fun-loving people, which is probably why their economy is one of the worst in the world right now. But they're fun-loving, and they drink more beer per head of population than anybody outside of Germany. So they're heavy drinkers, and they like to play a lot.
Australian for beer.
Yeah, Foster's. Yeah, So, but anyhow, then my Aunt Mary, she saw some of these stories I was writing in the men's magazine. She got hold of them, mainly because I sent them to her. I sent them via my friend. She gives this Aunt Mary, her name is so-and-so. And so...
She's like, have you read what my nephew's?
Yeah. and so she was absolutely thrilled with this. And she says, you write like Hemingway. She said, this is so raw and original. She said, I love these stories. And she says, but she pulls up, shows me a Woman's Weekly magazine. And he says, the Man magazine that you're writing for, look how thin it is. It's just thin. Mm-hmm. Look at the Woman's Weekly. It's that thick. And look at these high-gloss advertising.
Advertisers.
That's where they have the money. The women's magazines have the money.
Mm.
Write stories for them. And I says,
indeed.
Write stories for women's magazines? What stories will they be? She says, romance. I go, romance? Yeah. She gives me 3 or 4 Jane Austen's books.
She's like, here, do your homework.
Yeah, she said, read that.
You'll figure it out.
Read that. Write stories with like that. So that's just ridiculous. So I go back in the bush and I got these Jane Austen's books and I start reading them.
Yeah.
So this is easy. I can do that. Instead of crocodiles, I'll just have handsome young men seducing beautiful ladies in the woods, in the bush, saving them from perils and things like this. So I got Bruce, my guy now. He's saving, instead of saving himself, he's saving damsels in distress.
Oh yeah, Bruce. That's right. He's a hell of a guy. He's Bruce. A real ladies' man. Right?
Oh, he became a lady.
He became one. Yeah,
he became one. He was a bit rough.
It's one of the
before.
characters from one of his first fictional books.
Bruce was a bit rough, but he got this. The class of ladies he got tangled up with became finer and finer, and so Bruce became finer and finer. So it was good. But anyhow, one day I was down talking to I took a little rail motor down to the coast and went to Aunt Mary.
Yeah.
And she says, she said, I'm reading those stories now in Woman's Weekly. She says, they're so good. And she said, but you're still only doing story by story. She said, you should use your talents to become a reporter. She said, you need to use your talents to become a reporter. And I says, a reporter? Yeah.
Right, because she's seen what you now, she said, read these books. Yeah. You did, and then eventually you started writing for the women's magazines, and she goes, okay, now you should be a reporter.
You should be a reporter. and make a career out of this.
Aunt Mary knows what's up, dude.
Yeah.
She knows what's up. She'll
Yeah,
leave you a little sack of stuff so you can survive and whatnot.
I tell you, Aunt Mary was so up on everything. I just love that lady. She was such a character. She was my brother's sister, and I stayed with her a lot when I got out of the bush. I'd prefer to stay with her than anybody else. So she'd just put me on a rug on the veranda, a worn out mattress on the veranda, and I'd sleep there.
Right.
And but I loved the way I'd look in the room, and when she woke up in the morning, I just loved it. She had a big old banister to keep the meshing to keep the flies and the mosquitoes out in the tropics, you know.
Well, of course.
And then she'd wake up. She'd go and take a leak and come back and get back into bed again. She'd pour a tumbler of port, this much port, knock that down, light a cigarette and lay in bed, drinking port and smoking cigarettes. And I thought that was so cool.
That sounds familiar to me in some way, actually. But hey, you know what? That's not a bad way to start the morning.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Sounds like me.
Yeah.
I'm just
But
kidding.
she was brilliant. She her house was second story, 2 stories.
Yeah.
And so I'm in a house one day up in the top of the house, and I said, "Yeah, well, I should get going. I'll go down the steps." She said, "Well, take the elevator." I said, "Take the elevator?" "Yeah, I have an elevator." I said, "Really? A house with an elevator? I've heard of elevators." She says, "Yeah, it's right here." So she takes me out. There you go in the elevator. And what it is she's got a box about the size of this table, and it's on guide pins. And she's got a big container of water. When she wants the elevator to go up, she fills it there, and it goes down. The elevator goes up.
Hydraulics.
It's
Like early days hydraulics.
Yeah. And I just thought that was so brilliant. And if you want to go down, you just reverse it and put the water from the one tank into the other tank. She said it takes a couple of minutes, but you just turn on the faucet. And so the water was always working as on hydraulic, but she would have the faucet, just open the tap, as we call it, a tap, you know.
Yeah.
I just thought that was so cool. But she was great. And she said, "Do you drink?" And I says, "Well, I got really wasted on rum once." I said, "Oh," she says, "don't drink that rum." She said, "Here, show you how to drink." She started giving me whiskey. And I said, "Oh, this is good." She said, "Yeah, but don't drink too much of it." So
How old were you?
I'm like 14, 15.
Oh, that's a good aunt right
Yeah.
there. Just teach them while they're young. Get them, used to it. Whatever.
Yeah, and she said,
Put some hair on your balls, whatever.
and she says, do you smoke? And I says, "No." "Oh, here, let me show you how to roll a cigarette." So she's got all this tobacco, and so she taught me how to roll cigarettes and how to drink. And I thought, that's really so cool. So I went back to the bush. Now I'm smoking. Pour and drink.
Oh,
I was so adult.
you were cool. Felt
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it was a good, but she did arrange for me to be interviewed by Red Sutton, and he was the editor of the Cairns Post. He lived across the road from her in Edmonton. So I applied for a job, put on a suit, put on shoes. I was having a lot of difficulty walking with them because out in the bush I just didn't wear shoes. I wanted my feet to be real tough. And they got real tough with calluses on them. I could walk on rocks and everything. Wouldn't matter. And, I was like a wild animal. And so I put on these shoes and I got a...
You're still a wild animal, Colin. What do you mean I was a wild animal?
So I put on my...
Look at you.
Put on a suit and a tie and
Yeah.
went and sat down to Mr. Eddie's office. And he says, "Yeah," he says, "I've read your stories." He says, "Your Aunt Mary says you write like Hemingway." He says, "That's not true." I says, "I didn't think so either. She's just been Aunt Mary." He says, "You write better than Hemingway."
Oh,
I says, "Really?" He says, "Yeah, but don't let it go to your head." And he says, "Go on." So he says, "Okay." He says, "You're hired." He says, "Give me a high school certificate, and you'll be He'll be on the payroll. I said, a high school certificate? He said, yeah. He said, I can't hire you without one. I said, oh, really? He says, no, it's illegal. So I don't hire people illegally. So bring me a high school certificate and you signed on, cadet reporter. I says, okay. So I waited till he left that night, and then I went to the sub-editor who was doing the night shift. And I pulled up a chair in front of his desk and said, introduced myself, and I said, I'm Colin Dangaard, I'm the new reporter. He says, you're the new reporter? I says, yeah. He says, who hired you? I said,
Of course I am.
I said, read Mr. Sutton this afternoon. He didn't mention that to me. I said, well, he's probably busy. Anyhow, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? So I bulldozed him into giving me a story, and he told me he told me, well, follow this story up. He says, some idiot took an axe to his neighbour because the neighbour was screwing his wife. He says, if you can figure out how to tell that in the family newspaper, he says, you're on. He just wanted to get rid of me and figured I wouldn't be able to do that. So I came back and spent all night writing that story.
He's like, there, let's see if you can take care of this one.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Yeah.
You
So
do that.
and I slip it under Reg Sutton's door, and then his secretary comes in and says, Mr. Sutton wants to see you. And he says, I've read this story. He says, where have you recorded these quotes? I said, on my tape recorder. You got a tape recorder? I said, yeah. It's a suitcase about this big, the original tape recorder. I carried it with me when I went to the cop shop and put it down.
These suitcases, the suitcase phone, the suitcase typewriter,
yeah.
the suitcase.
I had all
the great suitcases.
all
yeah.
the great. I had all the great stuff.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I got the story was a big deal, and he published it, and then he calls me in the office next day and he says, I have another problem with you. I says, what's that? He says, you can't spell worth a damn. He says, you are the worst speller I have ever seen. He says, you're the greatest writer I've known for your age, but he says, you're the worst speller I've ever met. So thereafter he gave me lessons on spelling. Had to do 10 new words correctly every day.
Well, there you go. There you go. Because you had talent and you had promise, and he's like, okay, just a little more training in this area and whatnot.
Yeah, but that was the start of a really incredible journalistic career. It was so easy. But I had the big advantage I had was, A, I read a lot.
Right.
And I read all the classics. B, I didn't get educated in the formal sense.
Yeah.
So nobody got hold of my brain when I was young.
Right.
And filled it with a lot of crap like arithmetic and geography and stuff like that. It just clogs up your head.
Or even imagine today,
Yeah.
the kind of crap that kids' heads are loaded with. It's very impossible sometimes for them to be able to achieve certain goals and ambitions and stuff like that because there's so much distraction.
I always only wanted to do one thing, and that was be a writer.
Yeah.
And it was pretty easy how I was going to, the path to getting there was pretty obvious.
Right.
And I loved to read, and I'd copy great writers. I read all the classics and read the Addison Swift and Defoe and everybody from the old schools.
So you loved it.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
You know Judge Judy?
Right? Yeah.
She said recently, I saw it, I think on Instagram or something like that. She's like, figure out what you love, find a way to do what you love for a living, and then make yourself irreplaceable. Yeah. That's a secret to for her major success. We're talking lots of the irreplaceable part is that's where the money comes in. It's they have to have you.
Well,
so they have to pay you what you want.
I loved writing short stories and fiction, and I had over 2,000 short stories published by the time I started to be a reporter.
Only 2,000?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I had a lot of them. So
it's a big number.
Yeah, it was a big number. But
that's incredible.
But I just churned them out. Yeah. And I used to, a lot of Henry's techniques, of a twist, of a surprise at the ending. Always believe you should reward a reader when they've read what you've written and faithfully got to the end. You can't just say, "Oh, thanks for being there." You've got to give them a present, give them a surprise. Oh, what an ending! You know what I mean?
I love a surprise ending.
So Henry was a master at that, and I copied the Henry style. I copied everybody's style. It was.
Speaking about Hemingway, so after we filmed our first episode, I was doing a product promotion thing at a store, and I met Ernest Hemingway's granddaughter, Marilyn Hemingway.
Marilyn, yeah.
And I was like, this is bananas.
She used to live just around the corner from me here.
Yeah. I was like, oh, you know Colin Dangaard and the Dangaard Ranch and all that, and they're like, oh yeah.
Yeah. It's
incredible.
Yeah, Hemingway is a very, very straight, simple writer, really, and he used short sentences. And Jack London was like that.
Right.
You know, some of the others got a bit flowery in their words, but really the great writers were strict and conservative in the amount of words they used. Jack London, for example, you can drop any of his books on the floor, and the page it turns out, look at it, and see if you can take one word out of any sentence he's written. You can't.
No.
Without changing the meaning. It's the tightest writing I've ever seen, and that's who I tried to emulate all the time, was to write tight.
Right.
And in journalism, that served me very well.
Of course, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, what served me great in journalism was first of learning how to write.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, what I wrote was fiction, and when I started working for the National Enquirer and the Star, I verged onto fiction again, but it didn't matter. There's the difference between fact and fiction is very, very thin. There's only the two big gaps in writing is good writing and bad writing. That's a huge gap. Fact and fiction are a merge. Who knows what fact is? Somebody says, there are 100 ships out there flying across the Strait of Cortez.
Right.
Were there 100 ships? Well, no, maybe there's 50 ships. But there was a lot of ships. Okay, now we're getting down to the truth of it.
Right.
What is the truth? If you can tell me what the truth is, I'd be amazed, because the truth is what? The truth is that this is a microphone. Well, yes, it's a microphone, but it's a lot more than a microphone, isn't it? It's got this whole apparatus with it. It's got, it's so it's it's hot today. It was a hot day. So, okay, is that the truth? Was it a hot day? There's somebody who's going to think it wasn't a hot day at all.
Right.
Somebody who thinks might have been quite cold. So what is the truth? What that person said or what that person said?
It's perception, right?
Perception,
Perceived truth.
Perceived truth, and all the great writers. And I have to say that the most successful book ever written is the Bible.
Well, definitely, that's the number one.
It's the biggest seller
number one hit.
The biggest seller of all time.
But aren't all Bibles free?
Yes, and they're free. Yeah, but that's a good promotional campaign, isn't it? But
right.
But if you read the Bible, which I've done, I have one by my bed all the time, and I'm always reading it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's a very far-fetched story. It's a whole long line of far-fetched stories. If you believe everything in the Bible, let me tell you about this fishing trip I went on.
Right.
Had a couple of loaves of bread. I was followed by 500 people, and with my fish and my 2 loaves of bread, I fed 500 people. Now, would you believe that?
Not at all.
No, I wouldn't either.
But it sounds
but
good.
however,
it sounds like cool
it sounds like good.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that there wasn't an incredible man on the planet called Jesus Christ. He was.
Right.
What an amazing person he was. Was he God? Was he the Son of God? I don't know. I wouldn't go with that. God's up there. God's for sure here. But does he walk around in robes? I don't think so. Has he got a plant on here on Earth? I don't think so. Did he design the planet? Probably. Does he need anybody here? No. You know,
Right.
yeah. If somebody designed the whole universe, our universe and everybody else's universe strung between it, what do they need? What would he need any of us for?
Exactly.
So God to me is in each and every one of us, and it makes each and every one of us great because we are really infallible in our sense of what we can do and infallible in our souls. We become crooked and we become bad and we become a lot of things that are negative, but that's induced later on. It comes later on. It comes with conditioning.
My opinion on the Bible, I mean, I grew up as a Christian boy. My family was Mormon, and yeah, please, thank you. So the Bible, we're talking about the Bible and how you read it all the time, but it's the craziest, unbelievable story, and we're talking about the difference between what is truth and what is fiction and all that.
What I think is amazing that we, if you're in a court of law, you have to put your hand on the Bible and swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, right?
Right.
You're putting your hand on something that was written by a whole bunch of people, and I think half of them must have been on mushrooms or something, because there's the weirdest stories and impossible stories. You couldn't sell any of those stories in the popular market today. It just wouldn't work.
No.
Nobody's going to buy that a few loaves and a few fishes fed 5,000 people, or how many people. Nobody's going to buy that a great tidal wave came that was 100 feet high and there were ships on top of it.
Walking on water, turning water into wine.
Nobody's going to buy any of that.
Right.
That's just, but it's wonderful reading, and the Bible has a lot of spirituality in it. That's good, meaning it tries to delineate what we should be doing. That's good for ourselves and for each other, and it tries to pinpoint that. And I have no trouble with that. Now
It's not bad news as long as it's fake news. I don't know.
What's I mean, but you know what I mean? It's like it's good news.
Yeah.
They'll say, Christians will say, like, you know, share the good news.
Yeah.
It might be fake news, as Donald Trump says, fake news.
But it doesn't mean it's bad.
No,
I don't think.
No, I think in the Bible it's got good intentions about it. It's just I think it's odd.
Well, like when they say, like, you have to drown your kid on the third day of I don't know.
Yeah, some ridiculous thing. You know, it's all full of wonderful stories, really.
Right.
Written by people I think are on pot or something.
Right.
Because, you know, how could they come up with these?
They must have been smoking weed back then.
Yeah,
They must have found the
there
marijuana.
was something about it, but and to say that is, say Jesus Christ was talking the word of God, I find that a bit hard to believe too. Jesus Christ was obviously a very, very influential person. Nobody has made an impact on humanity greater than Jesus Christ. I'd sure like to meet the guy, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, that would be the most extraordinary what he did.
We'd have a lot to talk about. I'd bring up 1 Corinthians right away and just ask about that. Like, and you spend a lot of time with a lot of dudes around the table.
Yeah.
You know, I think that it's just interesting that a lot of so-called Christians haven't actually read the Bible, and then there's people that read the Bible all the time that don't consider themselves a devout Christian.
Yeah, well, it's for what it is. It's a collection of great stories by great writers of that time and philosophers of that time.
Right.
It's not the work of one great mind. It's an accumulative work of many, many minds, and it's been added to and subtracted from and altered and rewritten. And if that was a book you were trying to sell today on the popular market, you couldn't actually sell it because there's no identifiable author that's
Right.
clear. There's no identifiable group of people who are authors. Anybody could claim to be contribute to that, couldn't they? So it's an odd piece of work, but it's a real honest attempt to try and give people laws that they could live by that are compatible with other human beings. And I think if everybody followed the Bible, which is basically be kind to others and treat others like you'd like to be treated yourself. That's an axiom of what the Bible's all about. It'd be a much better place, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I wish people would actually do more of that.
Yeah.
But be good to your neighbor, treat people as you want to be treated.
I just think it's just an odd book to swear truth on, because the reason this comes about is what is truth?
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to. I don't know it's hard to know what truth is. Almost 100% of what we say is an opinion. It's an opinion. You could say 100 soldiers marched over that hill yesterday. Did they? Yes, I saw them. Did you count 100? Well, I can easily cast great doubts on your comments about 100 soldiers marching over that hill.
Yeah, like
and so
verifiable evidence is very rare. They can't even find that in court. People are like, well, was something truly illegal, or was it like a policy? Like, presidents don't normally do that, and they wouldn't. But if they do, then shit, we don't really. It's not technically illegal or whatever. There's all kinds of perception from politics, religion, and everything.
Someone like
quoting numbers.
And someone like Trump, you could say, well, you could come to his defense and say, well, he's entitled to believe that he won the election. He's entitled to believe that, and if we're in a country of free speech, he's entitled to say that. He should be able to express his opinion.
Yeah.
And by the same token, we should be able to say that's full of crap.
Right, exactly. That's our opportunity. Yeah, because we're blowing up numbers and bullshitting whatnot.
Yeah, right.
Like the value of your companies, or how many people were at the inauguration when there's satellite footage of it being completely opposite. But hey, listen.
Yeah, it's so.
Believe my opinion over facts.
Yeah. Well, that's about it, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And I spent a career as a journalist, and my responsibility was to repeat the belief of the person I'm interviewing. Now, are they telling me the truth or not? Am I supposed to examine them or not? No, if I did that, I'd have to be in a court of law. Then I'd have to have six lawyers fighting over it. Well, that's a long way from writing a story, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I have a big question for you. When we're talking about you working for the Star and the Inquirer and stuff, so people see these mags in the grocery store, and it's just the most unbelievable stuff, along the lines with the Bible and everything else. How much of that stuff that seems completely fake and completely unbelievable is actually true, to the point where people would be shocked to actually, because people are like, oh, pregnant woman gives birth and da-da-da, like, and like a Scottish mom, it's like, see, that's a fact. Pregnant woman gives birth. And her son's like, oh, geez, Mom, you got to stop buying that stuff.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, there's some stuff that's actually true, but unbelievable, or what?
Well, I wrote for the Inquirer for about 5 years before, and I was good friends with Generation Pope, the publisher. And that's when Rupert called me and said he wanted to start the National Star and would I be his West Coast editor. And so I had a lot to do with tabloids.
Yeah.
I was a tabloid reporter. And I must say that I was much more careful writing for the tabloids about getting facts as close as I could to what I thought was the truth. I was much more careful in the tabloids because that's where you're most likely going to get sued.
Right.
You could have it in the Pittsburgh Times or the LA Times or something, and you're less likely to be sued there because people are not using binoculars to look at that, are they?
Right.
But they are definitely examining the tabloids and covering your dick and that falls on a hot rock, you got a bit of a problem. You know,
Oh, yeah.
So
You're talking about running around naked in the jungle and
no, you got to have a loincloth.
a loincloth doesn't seem like it's going to
loincloth.
protect much. You
No,
like cover yourself in like steel wool or something.
But
Well, so did you ever have any mishaps? Like something crushed you?
Uh,
Never mind
no,
riding
what-
horses. That's a
no,
given.
no, well, yeah, no, I did have a couple of, yeah, yeah, I thought, what's that wriggling on my leg? And I looked down, it was a goddamn snake laying along my side.
Oh my God! Going straight for the family jewels almost.
No, it was laying the length of my body. It was a cold night, and I'm laying in the mud, and I'm covered in mud. And I can feel it moving against my skin under the mud, you know, and it's coming up, and it came up across my chest and went. And I thought, I don't know what sort of snake this is, but I'm not going to make any sudden movements, because if I do, it'll bite me.
Right.
For sure. And
Right.
if it bites me, if it's a taipan, I got 3 minutes to live. So I just like laid there very quietly. And he talked about one of the moments in the bush when I was glad it was over, and that was one of them. And he just went on his way. But there were snakes everywhere, all over the place. And
You know I would have been dead, right? You know I would have been like, ah!
yeah, if you did that, you would be dead.
Yep, goner.
But you know, the crocodiles, on the other hand, were pretty mellow. They'd be hiding all the time, you know.
Have you wrestled a crocodile?
No,
No?
didn't wrestle. I've shot a few.
Yeah.
I wasn't dignified by wrestling it. Give me a break.
So you've eaten your fair share of crocodile.
Oh yeah.
You've had some snake meat.
No, snake meat's good, pretty good.
Is it? We
Tastes
should
like-
have some on the show. Can you make some? Can you make some snake meat? Do you guys want to see us eat some snake?
Tastes like chicken.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you if it doesn't. It's probably kind of oily, right?
No, it's not oil.
Yeah.
No, it's pretty good stuff. You know, especially a snake this big, you curl it up in the coals,
Uh-huh.
and it bakes into a big black thing,
Uh-huh.
and you can carefully fold off the burnt skin, and there's beautiful flesh under there, just smoking.
Wow.
Yeah,
You make it sound so good when you're like, it's just smoking and delicious.
Yeah, it is.
Mouth watering.
yeah.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever eaten? Like the craziest, weirdest, you know.
Monkey brains.
Okay. Monkey brains, yeah. What do they call that again? Is that head cheese or something? I don't know what that
Yeah, it's, in Europe it's called head cheese.
Yeah. But monkey brains, huh? What is that like? What is it like to...
Bit like sheep brains. You've
Okay.
eaten sheep brains, have you?
No.
You haven't eaten brains at all?
No.
Jared, where have you lived?
No,
what
I
have
haven't
you
lived.
done? Haven't eaten any brains? God
I
damn.
haven't done that yet. That's something I should try. I
You
don't-
probably haven't even covered yourself in mud either.
Nope, not really. Except for one time at like a rave that got rained out. You know, big outdoor party covered in mud. But I, wasn't survival. It was just.
I tell you, the bush was a great place.
Actually, you know what? I have. Bush is a great place for sure. I think I probably would have if I was in that situation. But as far as like culinary wise or whatever, I was in Australia actually, and I went to a Chinese restaurant, and I ordered the chicken, right, and they cut the chicken in half, like straight through from the head to the foot, like that.
Yeah.
Must have been a samurai store. I don't know. That's Japanese. But like I ate the brains because my friend dared me to eat the chicken brains, and I ate it, and I thought it was very coppery and earthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently it's really good for you, like gizzards and
Yeah.
livers and whatnot.
Yeah, gizzards are great. You wouldn't think so, but I guess it is.
Do you eat the giblets on,
Oh yeah,
on
anything.
Thanksgiving?
I want the giblets.
This Thanksgiving, we're going to save all the good stuff for you.
All right, you can
okay?
say that for me.
All the brains and
Yeah.
oh god, livers, kidneys.
Yeah, well, but
So oh yeah, we were talking about we kind of went into like a little
segue.
there. But we were let's cut back to the Bible. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that back in the day, right, people wanted to be able to understand and explain why things were the way they were. So they could say, So they're writing about like, oh, God did this, made this happen. You know, okay, so on the first day and on the second day, God created this and created that. Because, like, imagine with no technology and no information and no really books, and most people couldn't read, you know, how do you explain, okay, scientifically or whatever? There wasn't really science. How come things are the way they are? What do you think?
Well, it's a modern interpretation of everything. Like time, for example. Who was it who decided there should be 7 days in a week? Who was it who decided there should be 24 hours in a day? Where did this come from? And what?
Who did?
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It was derived when the sun was at a certain place, that was called noon, and then when it came around again at the same place, that was considered to be a complete 24-hour period. So that was it. But who decided to do that? A lot of stuff we do, there's no reasonable explanation for it, including most of our behaviour. There's no reasonable explanation for that either. You know, we're so conditioned to be, because you're a man you should act this way, because you're a woman you should act that way. And thankfully now we have a lot of people in between that are showing us there's an alternative to being a full one of the, or a full other one.
Right.
And I think that's one of the greatest progresses civilization has made in recent times.
Oh, yeah.
Is to recognize that we're not all the same, and that and male and female are not all the same. That we are, once again, we're a magnificent species. That we have, some men have a lot more women in them than have more estrogen and testosterone. So that makes them one way.
Right.
Or men have a lot more estrogen than they do testosterone, so that makes them a little, quote, effeminate or something.
And then with women as well.
Yeah, with women too. So, but now all that's recognised, and I think that's one of the greatest achievements that's happened in civilization modernly, is that we've taken a scientific look at this, the reality of it. And, you know, just, and in modern times, it's only become, when you consider the Roman Empire, Julius Caesar and everybody else, there were not too many women in the Roman Empire. It was run by men.
Right.
And
you had like the Senate.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
they had like sort of a democracy-ish.
Yeah, kind of.
Early days.
Yeah.
Right.
But
wasn't society in the Roman days and in the Greek days a lot more liberal as far as like, you know,
yes, it was.
What people could do, and it was in a sin and da-da-da, and then like kind of when the control of the Christian revolution
with
and
the
all
rise,
that.
with the rise of Christianity,
they created these boxes.
They created boxes and put us in boxes.
Right.
And talking about boxes, we are busy putting ourselves in boxes. We are the modern man is the biggest builder of walls I've ever seen in my life. We build walls for everything.
We're going to build a wall. We're going to make America great again, all right?
Yeah, but we're building walls. So what does a wall do? It keeps people out, yes, but it stops you from going in. So a wall is a bigger problem for you as it is for anybody.
Right.
So building walls in any place is ridiculous.
I think it's ridiculous as well.
And
because people say like, oh, they want to build a wall to keep us in, or they want to, you know, what's that all about?
to keep who in and keep what? I mean, they want to build a wall to keep illegal aliens coming across into America. Well, that's not a bad idea, except if you took all the aliens out of America, we'd be impoverished.
Oh, absolutely. We'd have no workforce.
Yeah, none.
So what I don't understand, Colin, tell me, why do all these people in this country like to say that their jobs are being taken away when they're not willing to do those jobs in the first place? Are they talking about robots taking them away? Because I can understand that.
Well, robots are not going to take anything away.
Self-checkout
They,
stands in the store.
well, they said computers were going to take our thinking away. Well, computers didn't take our thinking away. If anything, they enlarged our thinking.
Right.
And they say A1 is going to take away from us. A1's not going to take anything from us.
You mean AI?
Yeah, AI.
AI, so
yeah.
artificial intelligence.
Yes, artificial intelligence.
Everybody's talking about this.
Yeah, but what's it going to take from us? I think it's going to add enormously to us because we can have even more intelligence, and having more intelligence is a good idea. But I do see one problem with it, and the problem I see is what I was starting to talk about before, is intelligence, artificial intelligence is building walls. It's now young people, they're terrified. You talk with because they don't know about the future, because they're worried about artificial intelligence. They're worried about all of these things that are happening, and they're building walls themselves to
Sowing division.
to try and keep artificial intelligence out.
Right.
But it should be like a more elaborate version of the typewriter, for goodness sake.
Exactly.
Which is a more elaborate version of the computer.
Right.
It's got to go on.
We go from records to tapes to CDs to MP3s to streaming. I don't believe that you should hold back science. I do think that there needs to be things in place to prevent, large corporations, studios maybe, from taking advantage of creators and their content, of course. But I don't know if I believe the idea that it's the end of the world.
No.
I think it could be manipulated by governments and politicians and people in power. Of course, like a lot of things can be too, But I think that for entrepreneurs, the ability to be able to write up, hey, AI, make a business plan for da-da-da, and then boom, it's there. And then, change it, adjust it, whatever. But to be able to accelerate innovation, AI is exponential.
Well, my comment is, what difference is a step from the computer to AI than it was from the written word, from the handwritten word with the quill and the feather and the ink, and then they made pens, ballpoint pens, and then they finally made a typewriter, and then from that they built computers. And so each step is a step along the way. So
Well, the quill maker people were really upset about the typewriter, They're like, we're going to go out of business. Well, yeah absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the typewriter still is, what an amazing machine that was. Yeah. What a tremendous breakthrough. I was in the Miami Herald when they changed from manual typewriters to electric typewriters. Right. And oh my God, you would have thought that they had dropped a bomb in the newsroom of the Miami Herald. There were protests. There were people saying, we don't want to use those electric typewriters with a stupid ball. We want the real typewriter. The real typewriter, which was the old typewriter. Mm-hmm. Isn't that odd?
Yeah, it is.
And I think that's...
It's just because, people get set in their ways and people get comfortable, right? And they don't like change, but there's those that do. So, do you want to be on the back of the bus or not? Or do you want to be you want to be on the front of the future, on the front lines of the future, on the cutting edge, or not?
Yeah. Well,
so get in or get out.
Yeah, I think the future of America looks so fantastic. If I was, I'd like to be 20 years old today in America.
Thank you.
I'd have nothing but what opportunity there is. I'd like to have the mind of a 20-year-old now, today, and sort of knowing what you know now, knowing that you've seen the future. The trouble is with, well, not the trouble, I hate starting sentences like that with the trouble is, but but it is the concept that young people have is very distressing to me, that they think that there's already too much of everything out there.
Right.
Well, there's not too much of anything out there. You try and find anything that there's too much of. Is there too much joy out there? No.
Right.
Is it too much happiness? No.
Right.
Is there too much food out there? Maybe some places, yes, but mostly no.
They all feel like everybody's already done it, so I can't do it.
Yeah,
Like
but
there can't be a Pepsi to the Coke. There can't be a Sprite to the 7-Up. Like
you kidding?
There's
Yeah. Look at this drink. I love this drink.
update. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
I
what-
mean, this is a great drink.
It has paroxetine, which is like basically a molecule isolated from caffeine. This is a great
Yeah.
company, by the way. Caffeine Evolved. It says Update is the first and only energy drink to utilize paroxetine, a revolutionary new energy source that is isolated and refined from the caffeine molecule with zero crash, zero sugar. But this is what all the cool kids are drinking these days.
Yeah, well, it's
But somebody had to say, guess what? I know everybody that has already made things like Red Bull and Rockstar and Riot and all these other energy drinks. But guess what? I'm going to do something different. Maybe AI helped them figure out how to do it, and here it is now. Maybe these kids are, able to buy a home, believe it or not, in California, or pay for a college education because you have to keep innovation strong with the young people,
But
right?
yeah, and you have to see opportunity, and there's tremendous opportunity. I get very angry with people who badmouth America and say it's all over, that there's too much of everything, there's no opportunity here.
Oh, I hate it when people say this whole country is collapsing, we're losing our country.
We are not, we're gaining. We are so gaining. If you think, you go to any capital city in the world and look at the American embassy.
Okay.
If you want to go there, you've got to get in line. The line will go around the block in most cities to get into the American embassy, just to get in line.
Because they want to try to apply to
They're trying to apply to get here.
Wow.
Go to the Israeli embassy and there's no line there. Go to the British embassy, there's a bit of a line.
I always tell people, have you seen most cities? Have you really, really seen? Vancouver, for example, that I lived at for like 12 years, is beautiful, right? Like it's gorgeous. Look at pictures and videos of all these beautiful towers in the sky and glass and whatever. On the ground level, their homeless scene, their crackhead scene and all that is some of the worst on earth.
Yeah.
But up in the sky, it's not. But down below, it is. Yeah, LA is kind of scary, but it's actually not. Even downtown LA is not as scary as downtown Vancouver.
No.
But it's perception. All these big cities I've been to around the world are quite scary and quite dangerous, and we are very lucky.
Yeah.
Here.
Well, it's
We also have great police
it's
force,
very
but-
it's very lucky to be, one of the great fortunes in my life was to get to America,
right.
and I was going to get here one way or the other. When I was a kid, my Uncle Fred bought me a fishing pole, and it came from America, and it had a reel on it that you'd roll up, and I'd never seen a fishing pole with a reel.
Mm-hmm.
We'd use fishing lines and things like that, but we never had with a reel. And you could
Like,
cast,
I'm used to just grabbing fish out of the water, biting
and you
with
could
my bare hands.
you could cast this like this. And I thought, wow, I'm like 10 years old.
Pretty cool.
And I said, I want to go to the place where this is.
Yeah.
And Uncle Fred said to me, he used to get the Saturday evening, he used to get Saturday Evening Post, and he said, look at this. There's a centerfold of old one of those Oldsmobiles that's about 9 miles long, And I said, yeah. He says, oh, I need to see that. And America's always been such an inspiring country to all the countries and all around the world. And Americans don't realize it, but they have inspired the world.
Why do Americans, having inspired the world and everything, hate on immigrants so much when most immigrants come and they do well. They work their asses off.
Their parents were immigrants.
Yeah.
Right. And
how do we lose sight of that? Oh, fuck.
I run a saddle company, as you know, and my most
Babies right here.
there's one of my saddles there. My most valued employees are Mexicans, and I've got citizenships for them and stuff like that. And God, I couldn't run my company without them.
Yeah.
I once, about 15 years ago, I got a bee in my bonnet, and I thought I should be.
You got a bee in your bonnet at the Nub Club?
I thought I should be employing a young American. What am I doing employing Latinos?
Right.
So I got somebody from the college down here,
Yeah.
and it was hopeless.
Big mistake.
Big mistake, yeah.
Didn't want to work as hard.
No.
Right?
He
Yeah.
came and said, well, what do you want me to do? And I says, well, first I want you to oil up that saddle, scrub it down, and use soap and water and scrub it. And he goes, scrub it? Yeah, scrub it, scrub and brush. You used a scrub and brush before? Oh, not really, but I'll scrub it. So he scrubs
Oh,
it.
man.
And then he says, now you're going to put oil on it. Oil? Yeah. He puts his hands in and he goes, oh, that's nasty, isn't it?
Oh, Jesus. The white privilege is real. I think that white privilege is more about, like, everybody's discussing theories on what white privilege is and BLM and all that stuff. But when white people, or I should say like non-immigrants, you know, that are here trying to work, they don't feel like they have to work that hard because they're white, you know? They don't feel like they should have to get that dirty. They don't feel like they should have to sweat. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's gross. And like, and the other guy's like, dude, what do you want me to do? I can feed my family. I can have kids. You know, like we got the whole family. Like, you know, like they're jonesing to do, you know?
Yeah,
and
right.
they're used to getting paid far less in worse conditions. They don't have much to complain working in beautiful Malibu compared to this.
I never hear a complaint
frickin' college
from
kid.
my workers, my Latino workers. Never hear a complaint of any of them from any of them about anything.
I love these.
I have to ask them. I say, well, is everything okay? You guys all right? Yeah. I pay them, and they always say, I pay them at the end of the week, and they always say, thank you, Mr. Colin, for giving us a job. Thank you.
Oh,
I mean, every time.
yeah. Yeah, that warms my heart.
Yeah,
love
they're
that.
really great.
Yeah.
So it's to try and get rid of them. I think that's the worst idea I can ever think of, especially as there's nobody to come up with them. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I hate to think about these people being separated from their families, you know, and I understand that we can't just have like open borders and we can't have
No, you can't have
200,000
that.
people coming over the Rio Grande in Texas and whatnot. But I also think that, you know, when you have these kids that really need to be with their families, you know, I mean, and if they're trying to do things the right way, they call them dreamers,
Yeah,
right?
dreamers. Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah. No.
let people be together, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit of that's one of the problems, I think. But America has other bigger problems. Fentanyl.
Huh?
Fentanyl's the bigger problem.
Fentanyl, yes. This is fentanyl is a synthetic
Opioid.
opioid that is hard to trace, and in how much can be in different forms of of drugs, of illicit drugs. You know, they could not even know. There's like 1 grain in a baggie of whatnot, and it could be that bump or whatever that kills them. And you know, dude, and it's so addictive, and it's just crazy because.
Yeah, well, we got problems with that, don't we?
Yeah.
That's really up there.
What do you think happened over this pandemic? I've heard that. No, I've heard and seen that there are more people suffering from depression, more people abusing alcohol and drugs than ever before. My cousin who works in recovery was telling me that industry is booming because of all these kids, but you know, also other people.
Yeah.
Really, what do you think caused that? I assume that feeling isolated and bored is one thing, but also like what else?
Well, I ride horses every week with a well-known Malibu chiropractor,
Uh-huh.
and he said his business boomed
Really?
because of the fallout from the vaccinations that people were taking.
I know that there was a lot of pandemic relationships where people wanted to cohabitate with someone to, you know, hang out with, you know, and then they got bored of each other and they started fighting. And then so there was this like post-pandemic breakup, they call it. I actually had one of those, so yeah. But yeah, so and then like so now like there's like all these single people that are like trying to figure things out, and it's hard because like social groups like went from this big to this big during COVID, and now making new friends and dating and things like that is scary to a lot of people because right?
Yeah, well, we have also, because of the technological wall that has come up, we've also lost our ability to socialize in the old-fashioned way, where you just go up to somebody and say, "Good day, how you doing?" You know,
Right.
start chatting.
Good
There's
day, how you doing?
a lot less of that, isn't there? A lot people are more reticent than they ever were to approach a stranger and start talking.
Yeah.
And I occasionally I do it just to see what it is. I'm always so curious about, particularly about human behaviour. So,
like what their reaction will be if
Yeah.
you just come up to a stranger and say, "Hey, good day," like.
yeah, I got
Hey,
to
you're
say,
really pretty. Do you want to see my ship to shore radio in my trunk?
yeah, you know, it's-
You want to call your mom in London?
yeah. Oh God, that was so great.
Well, that was in Ireland, actually, right? That was-
Yeah, Ireland. Yeah. Ship to shore radio, but it was. I had that. It's funny you should talk about that phone again, but I had that phone for like close to 7 years, 8 years. One day I'm getting on the phone to call it, and it was dead. I said,
That's like you not accepting AI. You do accept AI. You should have let go of that fucking phone. I'm just kidding. I think it's great, though. It's,
yeah, it's just dead.
why'd it die?
No, somebody got on it, but
Okay.
the system changed or something.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, but I just fell through the cracks. And being the honest guy I am, I went, called around and said, "You sure? Could you please send me a bill for this phone?" Okay.
Oh, by the way, you have some experience with technology changing right now. You're actually transitioning from PC to Apple, I hear.
Yeah.
So what is that like for you at
Well,
the tender age of 21?
well, put it this way. I went into the jungle yesterday, and I heard a growling noise.
Okay.
I thought there's something behind something behind this computer that's going to eat me.
That's what it felt like. I love it when you go like, "Oh, it is good." You're the greatest storyteller in the world. One of the greatest journalists that ever lived. So humble, he won't even say it. I'm going to say it for him every chance I get. One of the most successful, most famous journalists and innovators, saddle makers, and the list goes on and on. But you know, I mean, I only you would compare going from PC to Apple like going into the jungle, and it's like this growling animal that wants to eat you and ruin. But it is a huge transition, isn't it?
Oh yeah, but I'll get around it. I'll have some fun with it.
Yeah.
But I've been when I first got an iPhone, now about 10 years ago, I still have the same iPhone, and it's going great after 10 years. I got this iPhone, and I remember driving across. I was driving across the country, going to a horse show in I guess Tampa, Florida, or something. And I'm driving across. I see this phone, and John Noco is working for me at the time. He says, "You've had that phone in your briefcase for about 3 weeks now." He says, "You've never used it." I said, "Yeah, you're right." I said, "I've been, pulling over gas stations and using a phone." I said, "Well, those phones work good." He says, "Yeah, well, try working on this." He says, "Come on, we'll have give me a little lesson on it." I thought, wow.
He's like, "Come on, Colin. Come on.
This is
Come on, buddy."
This is great.
Yeah.
And now the iPhone, my iPhone is the most treasured possession I have.
Oh, mine too. I mean, I went
God.
from the flip phone. Then you remember the Nokia flip phone, right?
Yeah.
And then when I got a smartphone, and you had a few apps.
Yeah.
Now I've got so many apps, I can't even see what apps I have.
Yeah.
I'm going around. There's pages of apps.
Yeah.
You have to delete some of the apps that you only used once, like a travel. But there's so much. Oh my god! But it's great. Like, what would I do without it? And you can do everything on your phone now. Like, do you remember when you couldn't buy an airline ticket over a phone?
Yeah.
You couldn't, study for school over a phone. Like, you could,
Yeah.
You could do everything's over your phone. I don't even use my laptop anymore, really, unless I'm
Yeah.
actually going to sit down and type out an email. But now I could just do voice recognition, and then it auto-corrects everything, and I just send my emails that way.
Yeah, it's amazing. Technology is unbelievable.
I love it.
And I think AI is going to be a big breakthrough again. We
Yeah.
just don't know how big that's going to be.
They say that it's going to be great for medical research
Mm-hmm.
because it can take a look at all these papers in like 5 seconds or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and help scientists research
Mm-hmm.
the days of like studying all these like medical journals and papers and stuff like that to figure out like how to invent something new, like a new medication. It could make a huge difference.
I think it's going to make people be able to do many more things, which will create its own problems because there'll be people inexperienced. There's nothing more dangerous than somebody who has the correct knowledge but doesn't know what to do with it. So
Right.
they try to do something with this knowledge, and it turns into a disaster.
Oh yeah.
So
In the wrong hands and all
yeah,
that. Yeah.
just because you've got AI to tell you how to fix a stomach ulcer,
Right.
also with searches and scalpels and things, and you think you can do it because you got the book, you've read,
Right.
you've got the program. Doesn't mean to say you can do it, does it?
At-home doctors, that'd be scary.
Yeah,
like,
no, but that.
here, honey, watch this. I watched this on YouTube. We don't even have to pay for
Yeah.
a surgeon.
Yeah, but
I'm sure I could.
that's the type of thing. That's the type of danger you can see happening,
Oh yeah.
where people.
Well, speaking of danger, what do you think about the idea of like AI robot girlfriends that they're talking about? Like, I understand, like, you can program it to tell you everything you want to hear, but like, what happens if like something takes it over, and suddenly she's like, "Hey, asshole, go fuck yourself." And you're like, "What? I did not. I programmed that you have to say, 'Hi, honey, you look great today. Dinner's on the table.'" And all of a sudden, and then it tries to like kill you or whatever. This is like horror story stuff.
I had girlfriends like that. What do you mean?
You motherfucker. No,
I'd been after I'd married my first wife, Linda. It's funny. I brought her up here, and we were having an argument one day,
Uh-huh.
and so I said, "I want you to. I'm going down to saddle up my horse. I'm going to come up here and have a glass of wine ready for me, and then I'm going for a thunder through the hills.
Okay.
It's getting dark. I used to gallop through the hills here at night time.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. So I come up here and."
Anything that risks your life, Colin.
So I had this big horse tower.
Okay.
So I'm standing in front of the kitchen there.
Yeah.
And I says, "Where's my glass of wine?" She says, "You're an arsehole. You can get your own glass of wine." I said,
Linda says this?
"That's not very nice." I says, "Well, in that case, I will." She says, "Good. Get your own glass of wine." I said, so I just took...
What did you do to make her so mad at you?
I don't know.
What did you do?
That's probably just... So I walked up, took Tower in, walked him through that door. Tower was this big... Tower was a 16-3 hand...
You walked the horse through the door?
In the kitchen.
Well, I've seen you walk a pony through once.
Yeah,
So
but no, I walked a big horse in the kitchen.
Oh, shit.
And then he goes... And Tower's up here. And he's looking around like this, his big eyes are rolling, and I'm walking him, I'm riding him, and I'm reaching over to open the refrigerator to get a bottle of wine out of there. And then he's going, I said, "I wouldn't scream if I were you." I said, "If this horse is, I can feel him trembling a little. If he unloads in this kitchen." So
Shit.
I
Literally shit.
I said, and then he takes a big old dump. And she said, "Hey, hey." I said, "I wouldn't say anything if I were you. He's just taking a dump in the kitchen. That means he's very relaxed. This is good for us, isn't it?" Because if he wasn't relaxed, there would go the window, there would go all the furniture, there would go probably you or me, broken legs and arms.
Oh, my God. She must have been terrified.
Oh, yeah. I got out of
You
it.
got her good.
I got her good that time. And she said, "Don't come home again."
Didn't you and Linda used to like go to parties and in different outfits or disguises or something?
Oh, yeah. And
That is Classic.
Oh yeah, I had so much fun with her. She was a wig freak. She had
Wig freak.
she had 40 different wigs, and then she dressed. She had a black wig, and they all had names, and she had them all in.
Before there was time, beyond time and space, a pleasure